Hmm. Let's see. Oh wait, we're not visible. There we are. Hello, everyone. Hola. ¿Cómo estáis? That is-
Hola, Denise.
Hola, Denise.
Hola, Chama.
Hola, Chama.
Nuria.
Well, hello, everyone. We are not in the van today. We're at at my mother's house in the desert. And yesterday, my brother became a grandfather, so we have a new addition to our family.
Malcolm.
Yeah, Malcolm Gabriel Forbes. So we're celebrating that. I wonder if I have a photo I can show you. The technology, the father could be in the hospital, but nobody else. But with Zoom or with FaceTime or whatever, we are able to. Let's see, where did they give me photos? Ah, yeah, there we go. Can you see a baby there? Oh, there the baby is. So that was.
Jim, sorry, whose baby is that?
That's my brother's grandson, my nephew's son.
No, nice. Congratulations to them.
Yeah, continuing our name, I guess. Because my brother and myself, we've only had daughters who don't seem to want to get married, so maybe their name continues on. But so how are things? How are things where you all are? How is Spain? Are anybody getting any vaccines? I was hoping Luis would be on to see whether. No, huh? Still no? A little bit? Un poco?
Nadie.
Ay, ay, ay. Okay, well, I'm waiting. I'm going to wait here to get mine. And then Anna Monica, we don't know what we'll do, but there's no point to go to Spain, I guess, if there's no vacuna.
Is there any indication how long it will take for yours to come through?
I'm hoping within a month, because I turned 64 this month, but the cutoff is 65 years old. So all my friends who are 65 and over, they've all gotten their first shot.
Oh, wow.
So it's moving.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay, well, why don't we meditate? Let's see, where's my bell? Here's our bell. So I thought we would. So we've been talking about the Noble Eightfold Path, as many of you remember, or maybe all of you. And we're now on the final eighth factor, which is Samasamadhi, which can be translated as wise concentration or wise stillness. And so I will introduce, I thought I would just kind of lead us in sort of on a stillness practice. We usually do it at the beginning anyways. We do samatha or samadhi practice, and we'll do that throughout the whole 30 minutes, but I'll introduce maybe a few tricks, you might say, as to what can help you kind of find that stillness, even in our busy lives. So hopefully that will work. So set our timer. Whoops. And here we go. So as usual, try to find a comfortable posture. And I was really noticing today in my morning meditation, how a still body can really support a still mind. And in fact, I think we can even deliberately or with a little energy quiet the body, focus on quieting the body, stilling the body. And one of the consequences of that will be a quieter mind. And one way to still the body, quiet the body, is to relax the body. Just relax into your posture. Onto the chair or the cushion, the bed, whatever you might be sitting on. But keeping your back straight, your shoulders maybe open to open the chest, the head upright, but with a little bow to open up the back of the neck, but also to establish a humble and noble posture. So just feeling the body, experiencing the body sitting here right now. And allowing yourself to connect with whatever is alive in you right now. Maybe there's physical sensation, tingling, maybe pressure, weight, temperature. We notice, we experience, we watch it pass. And if there's lots of thought, no problem. We can kind of let it run its course. Let it pass like clouds in the sky. And then try to return your attention to your body. Maybe there's even some emotion or some nerves active in the body. We just feel them, notice them, experience them. So in a samadhi practice or samatha, we often choose an object and focus on that object, trying to gather the mind, unify the mind with the object. So it can be a broad, open object like the whole body, or maybe one more narrow like the breath. If you're sleepy, if it's been a busy day for you, maybe pick the breath and maybe even pick a single spot. Try to generate some energy by focusing a little harder on a single spot. If you're feeling a lot of nervousness or excitement or energy, maybe a broader attention. And if the body is not a comfortable place for you today, you can always use listening, sounds, a receptive form of meditation, waiting for the sounds to enter into the ears. So pick your object, your anchor, and return to it again and again once you've noticed that your mind has drifted into thought. This is not a bad thing. This is what the mind does. So we just notice that. When we notice it, we can come back. And just try to relax into your object, into the awareness of your object, whatever it might be. And one little trick that I find helpful is to remind myself or to imagine that I am aware of the object as an observer, the observador, the observadora, the part of our mind that simply watches, simply observes itself, very still, very unaffected. So we just remind ourselves to just observe the thoughts, observe the breath, observe the sensations in the body. I find this quite helpful. if you are using the breath as your object, you might experiment with noticing the gap or the stillness between the exhalation and the inhalation. Or even between the inhalation and the exhalation, even usually narrower. If that's a little too narrow a focus, maybe waiting for the exhalation, focusing on observing the exhalation, the exhale. This strengthens the focus on the breath, and we usually get lost in thought with the exhalation. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and we tend to relax, and then the mind drifts away. So just waiting for the exhalation, noticing the exhalation, or that bit of space, that bit of stillness that follows it, even better. Again, with curiosity, kindness, just experimenting with it. If you are experiencing lots of thought, need something a little grosser, you might say, to stay with the object, you can try counting your breaths. There are many ways we can do this. One example would be to count to 5 and counting both the inhale and the exhale as 1, inhaling 1, exhaling 1, inhaling 2, exhaling 2. And when you get to 5, you can start all over at 1, or you could try counting backwards. And if you get lost in thought before you reach 5, no problem, just start again. Another tool or technique to establish samadhi is something I heard from Joseph Goldstein, where he said something like, just this breath, to have an intention to just stay with this one breath. And then the next one breath. And the next. So just one breath at a time. Just see if we can stay through the whole inhalation and exhalation of this one breath. Keeping the intention very much in the present moment. Good. So no matter how your meditation has been or where your attention might be, let's return to the body, reestablishing an embodied presence and embodied awareness. Might take a moment to notice how your body feels right now, possibly different than at the beginning. Maybe a little more pressure, maybe even some discomfort here and there, or a body part asleep. Just kindly noticing that. And then bringing your attention to your heart center, your chest area. Feeling in the area of the heart, and then thanking yourself for your practice, the goodness of your practice, the fact that you've taken time out of your Sunday, Valentine's Day to sit and remembering the others on this call doing the same, thanking them for their practice, for supporting our practice, our Sangha, our community. And imagining you can just send out in all directions your gratitude, goodwill, touching all beings. And when you hear the sound of the bell, just as always, noticing what might arise. Sometimes a thought like, oh, too soon, or a different thought, finally, whatever it might be. Thank you all very much. Practicing. See, a couple people have joined us since the beginning. David, good to see you. Looking very youthful as usual. Alicia, I don't see her, but I see her box. So yeah, such a important part of my life is leading our little Zoom group each Sunday. It's been very close to a year, I guess, on Zoom. I think it started in March, I guess. So we're almost at a year, but amazing, just amazing. Amazing that it's been a year, and amazing that we're still doing it. Our group has shrunk a little bit, but thank you guys for continuing to show up. Yeah, so important. And I'm, David and Nacho and Chema and everyone doing the groups during the week. I'm so grateful for that, and thank you for that. It's like in the Bay Area of California, we have a number of teachers who had been teaching for many, many years, and in live groups, obviously, but they're doing them online. And some groups are small like ours, others are hundreds of people. It's quite interesting, but so supportive. I think this would be a much different experience for me if I didn't have that regular outlet, community, teachings, just really just made this very bearable, right? Very, very bearable. And I can't tell you how much I want to come back to Madrid, and I want to, our apartment is probably filled with dust. I don't know. We do have a friend who goes in and out, but it's, yeah. And then Saladana, which I know Nacho's keeping it warm, so that's good. Just a reminder that starting on Wednesday is the Satipatthana course with Francisco Gable, who was with us a couple weeks ago and will be visited by Bhikkhu Analio. I still haven't signed up, but I'm going to try to do it today or Monday. I'm just going to check 1 second here to see if it's on the website, the Dhamma Madrid website. I think it is, but let me just check the link. No. Oh, thought it was. Oh, yeah, it is, right? Okay. Yeah. Oops. On the dhammamadrid.org website, on the Spanish page, just right below the first paragraph is a link, an enlace to this course. And I think it's, forget it, do you know how many weeks? It's like 6 weeks on Wednesdays for 2 hours.
That is 8 or 9.
8 or 9 weeks? Okay, maybe it's 8 or 9 weeks. It's some number of weeks on Wednesdays. And I don't know how often Bhikkhu Analio is going to be there. It might just be the very last week, but it is his course. Basically, he designed most of it, and it's based on his books. And these are like Francisco is one of his assistants and one of his students and stuff. So I think it could be quite enriching. Anyway, so I thought we would move to the 8th factor for just real quick for those of you who haven't been following along or maybe like little refreshers like me. Let's see where Firefox list. Here we go. So just a reminder that we've been doing the Noble Eightfold Path, right? There's our list of 8. And now we are on the 8th factor, translated here as right concentration, Samasamadhi. I've started to really like Ajahn Brahm, one of the monks, contemporary monks in the Ajahn Chah tradition. He calls it right stillness. He likes the word stillness for samadhi. And I also like that particular translation. And one thing that really struck me about this is how this is where, for me, Buddhism really deviates or veers away from Western religions, right? Like you don't find in Christianity or in Judaism or Islam a practice of concentration or a practice of meditation. They have prayer, but of course, prayer being, as I understand it, to this external God, while here it's an internal practice of concentration, of stillness, of training the mind. And I think it's just so unique, right? And it's not that it is void of any spirituality, because that's not so. It is very, very spiritual. But it's an inside job, we say. It's an inside job. And there's two types of samadhi. We have our calming samadhi, or our serenity samadhi, which is usually what we do on Sundays. in the first 20 minutes as we're trying to center the mind, calm the mind, create serenity, right? So we have this samadhi bhavana, or cultivation of stillness. And then there is vipassana bhavana, right? Which many of us know that word vipassana. Many of us have attended vipassana retreats. And vipassana is translated in English as insight, or another way that we can maybe translate it is as wisdom or clear seeing. And so the samadhi has like two functions. One is and they feed each other, they support each other, they help each other. One is to create a calm, centered, serene chitta, mind, body, nervous system, right? A non-reactive state, which by in and of itself is fantastic, right? We're not reacting from the pushes and pulls of life. We're stable, we're spacious, we're centered, we're serene. And it creates the conditions, the factors for us to be able to see things more clearly, to see how things really are. And this is especially important in the three factors of which all conditioned things have, three characteristics. And that is that everything is impermanent, and that everything is unsatisfying in part because it's impermanent. Nothing has lasting forever wonderfulness, right? It's imperfect. And that everything is impersonal, or that is, there isn't this long-lasting, everlasting self. These are the three characteristics that are very Buddhist. They deviate even a little bit from the Hindu thought, because the Hindu thought is that we're all part of a Brahman, we're all part of God, where there's this continuation with rebirth and so forth. While with the Buddha perspective, the Buddhist perspective, there really isn't this long-lasting self. Conditions arise, we are born, we have an experience, and then it passes like everything else. And with a stable, centered, clear-seeing mind, we're able to experience that at an experiential level, like a cellular level. We get to really know it. And when we really know it, we find that there's no point to cling. There's no point to hold on, right? Because nothing is lasting. Okay, I'll try to go. There's a lot that I have on my, in the computer here, and I'm hopefully going to find it quickly, what I want to say to you. So I'm going to go to Kindle. I think it's here. Oh, wait a second. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is in Joseph's book. Ah, yes. Sorry. That was Bhikkhu Bodhi's book that I had on my Kindle on my computer, and then I've got Joseph Goldstein's book in my tablet. Thank gosh for Apple, right? I got all this stuff. So this is a quote from the Buddha. The Buddha was very clear about the importance of this last step on the path. Okay, Sama Samadhi, the eighth factor, the last step on the path. He was very clear about the importance. Bhikkhus, he says. Bhikkhus, as you remember, is like practitioners, monks, beggars, however you want to translate it. Bhikkhus develop concentration. Could you imagine like a priest or saying that? Develop concentration. No, they don't say that. But the Buddha said it. Develop concentration. A bhikkhu who is concentrated understands things as they really are. And what does he or she understand? the arising and passing away of the aggregates. And in fact, I'll just in case, the aggregates quickly just being the factors of all conditioned things. I'll just show you what they are since I have it right here. The 5 aggregates are form, sensations, perceptions, sankharas, mental activity, and consciousness. In other words, in Buddhist thought, all experience is included in the khandhas, or the aggregates. And so what he's saying, with concentration, we understand the true nature of all things, the arising and passing away of form, our bodies, any other form, our perceptions, our feelings, our thoughts, and even our consciousness. Even our consciousness arises and passes away. This is where he kind of deviates from Hinduism, where to them consciousness continues, right? It's all one big giant consciousness of which we are a part. But the Buddha was kind of a rebel in that way, and he's like, nah, even that ends as well. And for me, that has always been an encouragement to not cling, to not get into fixed views, to not get into rigid stances, because none of this stuff is permanent. It's all about letting go, letting go, letting go. Okay, I'm going to go back to my little list here for just one second. Or not my list, but so this is from Bhikkhu Bodhi, his book, which we've been reading from. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about samadhi. Make sure I got that. Yep. So Bhikkhu Bodhi says that samadhi, so first of all, they use the word one-pointedness, egatata. I'm not pronouncing it right. How important it is to have a mind that is not distracted, right? Very much of this is like an absence of something, and in this case, an absence of distractions. We're now focused on one thing, which could be broad, like we do, the body, could also be narrow, the breath, could also be a thought, could be any variety of things, but it's one-pointedness. But this is what's important, this second thing that I've highlighted. Samadhi is exclusively wholesome one-pointedness. This is like the mindfulness that we talked about. The concentration is in a wholesome state of mind. So if you're holding an arm, a rifle, ready to shoot another being, and you are focused one-pointed on this process, this, your object that you intend to shoot or whatever, this is not samadhi. It's not mindfulness either, right? It is not wholesome, therefore it is not samadhi. Samadhi is wholesome. Let me see what the first part of this sentence. Even then its range is still narrower. I'm just going to read what I've highlighted. It does not signify every form of wholesome concentration, but only the intensified concentration that results from a deliberate attempt to raise the mind to a higher, more purified level of awareness. I love that, okay? We're onward leading. We are hopefully facing towards nirvana, towards the freedom from suffering. And this is one of the 8 factors on this path. And this is not to be, confused with desire. Yes, there is a wholesome desire here for a purified level of awareness. So not all desire is an obstacle, is a hindrance. When we're onward leading and we're facing in the right direction, then it is okay to have this energy. The commentaries, so these are the things that were added after the time of the Buddha. The commentaries define samadhi as the centering of the mind and mental factors rightly and evenly on an object. Samadhi, as wholesome concentration, collects together the ordinarily dispersed and dissipated stream of mental states to induce an inner unification. And this is something we can do in our home practice. Of course, it's much easier if you have a long period of time on retreat. Well, 3 days is kind of short, but let's say you have a week, or, the Goenka retreats are 10 days, really like 11, because it kind of takes that long to, especially when we have such busy lives, distractions from all the modern everyday things, technology. It takes some time to kind of train the mind to keep coming back enough so that you start to have a unified concentration on this one-pointedness. Back in the day of the Buddha, when they didn't have, like me, what have I got? I've got three technological devices here when I'm doing a meditation. Imagine what I'm like when I'm not doing a meditation. I got 5 or 6. In fact, I do have another phone over there. I mean, it's terrible. So back then, they didn't have this. And in some parts of the world today, they still don't. For instance, I'll tell a quick joke. Some of you have heard of the jhanas, and these are absorption states of concentration. They're found within the samadhi factor. And there are jhana experts, teachers that are very skilled at entering and teaching the jhanas. And there's one American teacher I like very much by the name of Guy Armstrong, and he's from the Bay Area. And he's been teaching for 30 years or whatever. And he went to Burma, he went to Myanmar to practice under a great master, a great jhana master. And he tells a story about how he was listening to a young fella who was getting an interview with the teacher before him, how the guy had spent 3 hours in the jhana, the third jhana, 3 hours in the third jhana, didn't move, right? And then it's Guy's turn to have his interview, and he says, I can't seem to get in there. I think I'm trying too hard. This guy's been teaching for 30 years. And it's because really in Myanmar, well, things are crazy in Myanmar right now. I mean, there's a police coup. I mean, not a police, but a military coup again. And, it's all, it's terrible back what's happening there again. But in the villages, the village people, they have very, very simple lives. They've only recently got phones. And one of the funny things is their phones only had Facebook on it. So for a long time, they didn't know the difference between Facebook and their phone. They thought this was a Facebook. But their lives are much more simple, right? So they're able to reach these levels of concentration because they don't have so many distractions. Even Jerome Limaret, who teaches there in Spain, he admitted it's very hard for us Westerners to reach the jhanas because our brains are just so accustomed to multitasking and taking care of so many things. Nevertheless, my experience has been that even if I'm way far away from the jhanas, wanting to improve my level of concentration, wanting to deepen my level of samadhi is always good. It's onward leading. It's leading toward a reduction of suffering and hopefully someday, some life, the end of suffering. And we can do it in our 30 minutes on a Sunday or in your morning practice. You can get little glimpses of it. And as one of my teachers, Gene Lustig, said, he said, even an interruption of your thinking mind for a short period can have transformative benefits. Even if we get only 3 breaths, 5 breaths, without thought, that can have transformative benefits. Healing, just changing our DNA a little bit, poco a poco. Let me see. There's so much here, and we're going to talk about it for a couple more Sundays. Let's see. Get back to Joseph. Okay, here's another quote from Joseph. Samadhi is concentration that makes the mind pliable. It's an interesting word. Pliable is kind of soft. It's kind of changeable, right? Makes the mind pliable and pervades it with a happiness much greater than the happiness of sense pleasures. Okay, there's kind of a little, if you like happiness, right? It's there. I mean, I don't like, well, I don't want to like blow my horn or whatever, but my morning sits usually before I've had any coffee, before my mind is, I can sometimes get a little piece of stillness in my practice that is by far the best moments of my day. I mean, even having a new family member be born, it's a wonderful thing. People, some people were crying and everybody was so happy we have this new baby. And the feeling I get in those moments of stillness, still, I prefer, to be quite honest. It's just so nice. And we can do that with our regular practice. And then, you go out into the world kind of, it's sort of difficult right now, right? It sort of sucks in many ways. We're dealing with this goddamn COVID. We see all sorts of things that probably irritate us, governments that can't get their act together, they can't distribute the vaccine, or there isn't enough vaccine. There's all these things we could complain about. And yet I find I have my practice. I trust and really depend on the goodness of my practice. And even if I only get 5 breaths, whatever it is, 10 breaths of stillness, oof, very supportive, very, very supportive. And this is what the Buddha knew. He experienced it. He taught it. Others practiced it. And it is, I think it's just, it's such a part of Buddhism. It's Buddhism, right? I mean, like if you think of Zen Buddhism, right? They just say Zen, which Carlos told me just means meditate, right? It's just, that's the gig. Meditate, Let me see, there's one more thing that I wanted to say here. Okay, I'll end with this other quote from Joseph. Again, this is from the Buddha. A bhikkhu who is concentrated understands things as they really are. And we see that this brings us back to, right, the very first of our factors. So this really isn't a one-way path. This is almost circular, or maybe you could say it's a path after a path after path. The right mindfulness, and one leads to the next. So right mindfulness leads us to concentration. Concentration leads us back to right view and understanding. And each time we go through this, which you could do it even in a day or a year or whatever it is, it deepens our view. And the view of how we see really dictates the rest of the path. And as you guys are so aware, this is a path of wisdom. The reason for our suffering is ignorance. The reason for our suffering is greed and hatred, which are both caused by ignorance. If we really knew how things were, why would we be greedy? We would know. It does not bring happiness. Why would we be hateful? We wouldn't be. So it's about dispelling or quenching that ignorance, that confusion with wisdom. This is the first one, right? And then we just go through it again. We have our ethical conduct. We have our practice, leads us to more concentration. You can't concentrate wholesomely if your mind is filled with confusion. You know, if you're thinking hateful thoughts, if you're wondering, how can you, not pay your impuestos, or something, whatever. These things are going to cloud the mind and make it very difficult to achieve wholesome levels of stillness, samadhi, and your view is going to continue to be confused. So they just, one leads to the next. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Is there anybody who would like to say something or has even a question or a comment? Could be about practice, could be about whatever.
Hi, Robert here. Yeah, just it was interesting for me, the meditation, because obviously you brought up stillness at the start. Stillness is one of the things I really love about my practice more than anything. And of course, I struggled with stillness because I was expected to be extra still or focus on stillness. I don't know what happened, but I found it more difficult to be still. So it was a little bit of rebellion going on internally there, which is kind of childish, I suppose. And the other thing, just generally about right thought and concentration, all those things. I've been trying not to feel like I know what's right recently, and just try and work towards solutions to things, more in a work type situation. And it really struck me. I was listening to that Milton Friedman old school kind of economics thing, and what struck me, he was talking, and what struck me is he's convinced that he's right, about it, and it's just an extreme, and that's, whenever someone is completely convinced that they're right, it's just a big warning for me about anything, especially on the geopolitical sort of front. Anyone who thinks they're right about other people is even more dangerous, I think. So so all this right thought is interesting for me, Be careful.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joseph Goldstein has a quote I like very much. He says, certainty is not a sign of truth. In fact, sometimes the more certain somebody is, the less likely that what they believe is true.
Yeah. Because there is no one truth.
Possibly because there's really no one truth, or that the absolute truth is really not how things appear. That there is a deeper truth, an absolute truth, which in Buddhist case is that all things are empty and void of self. This is not apparent, though. Things look very solid. They look very, real. They look like they have selves and so forth. So this is kind of the manifest truth, the apparent truth, but there is an absolute truth that's underneath that. And this is one reason why we practice. This is vipassana, to see it clearly. And, I've been lucky enough to have had an experience at a vipassana retreat where I kind of like pierced through the manifest into this other realm oh my God, it's one of the most profound experiences of my life, where it really felt like it rearranged my cells. I cried because it was so beautiful and so real and completely void of physical things. So I think that's kind of what they're pointing to, is this absolute truth, this deeper truth, that if we all knew it, then we wouldn't be so certain we know what's right. And there's a whole list of types of clinging on these, of the aggregates clinging, that the Buddha watches or encourages us, warns us about. And it's called ditthi. What's the word I want? I'm lacking an English word that I'm trying to think of, but it's well, I could just call it wrong view. Wrong view, not seeing things as they really are. This is probably one of the biggest concerns that we have, and especially about ourselves. That not only am I solid, I'm a solid, everlasting human being, but, because I'm an American, I know something, or because I'm almost 64 years old, I know something, or I'm a teacher. It's this confusion of self. I think it's called samatha ditthi. Ditthi is the view, and I forget exactly what the word is for this self view. But yeah, Friedman, he's probably caused as much harm as anybody with his beliefs, and a lot of people still believe in his theories of economics and so forth. Yeah, anyone else have any comment or?
Yeah, I would like to ask you about this concept that I hear so often Chema talk about, which is that we can't die since we are not really born.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, isn't it? It makes sense, right? If you're never born, how can you die? So I can see how they arrive at that. And these perspectives, these points of view, these ways of looking at no self or not self, they can be a lifetime practice of understanding. They don't, for most people, they don't come, so very easily. It's like, what? I'm a self here, and I was born, and I just had a nephew who had a child. That person was born. But I think what they're pointing to is that underneath the apparent physicalness of our life and our death and so forth is this continuous stream of consciousness, this continuous stream of experience that no tiene nada que ver con our physical form, on our perception in this short lifetime. That there is this deeper current, for lack of a better word, of life, of consciousness that doesn't have anything to do with life and death. It continues on. And for many of us, until we actually have some kind of an experiential moment where we see it clearly, it can be difficult to accept, just without a doubt. But this is why we practice. And when you get into these deeper levels of concentration, especially if we can get into the jhanas, which, I've not gone deep into the jhanas, but I've experienced the jhana factors enough to know that that's when the mind is so pliable. It's so suggestible. It's so soft, right? It's let go of these pre-existing views. And then when this absolute truth comes, we see it. Oof, wow. So the way I've held it is you just, we try not to worry about it, try not to tie ourselves in knots about it. Okay, that's part of the teachings. And when I get there, I get there. Meanwhile, we just practice. We just practice. Okay, well, I see our time is up and even a minute past. If there's no one else that wants to say anything, why don't we do a quick metta meditation, a Valentine's metta meditation? I know Anna Monica wanted me to talk a little bit about love, but I don't feel that qualified to talk about that, honestly. But I'll do a little metta meditation. Okay. Whoa, that's especially me when I do these talks, I get so up in my head. So I got to really drop back into my body. Feel my body, reestablish an embodied presence. So let's do a little bit of loving kindness, metta practice, starting with ourself. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I live with ease. Now let's offer metta to those beings, those people who are on the front line of the pandemic, the doctors and nurses and technicians and frontline workers who have just been at it now almost 1 year. Thanking them by offering them metta. May they be happy. May they be well. May they be safe. May they live with ease. And now let's try to give metta to a difficult person. Somebody maybe where there's been a little hurt. Maybe somebody said or did something or didn't do something that hurt our feelings. Maybe we have a little resentment towards them. Imagine them in front of you. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And now all beings in all directions without exception, may all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. And finally, let's dedicate the merit of our time together today, our practice, the teachings, our Buddha nature, our Sangha. Dedicate this to the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong. safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war and violence, discrimination, racism, and free from coronavirus. And may all beings find their path, find their direction that is onward leading to the end of their suffering, onward leading to the end of all suffering. May all beings be free. Well, thank you again, everybody. I'm happy to form a couple small groups if people would like to share with others, if you're still around, and feel free to unmute yourself now if you want to say something into the room, say hi or bye or.
Thanks, Jim. I'm going to drop off. I've got